Good morning, everyone. It is Thursday morning. I'm Nick Paro, not your dad, here on Sick of This Shit Publications. This is a discussion for intelligent masculinity where I am joined by someone many of you may know or who have seen before on some of my shows. I've had vet talks with him. We've had some really incredible discussions. He is just incredible with what he does. Good morning, everyone in Substackverse, in Twitch, in YouTube, wherever you are tuning in from today. Again, I'm Nick Paro, not your dad, joined by retired Navy Commander Bobby Jones, who is the president for Veterans for Responsible Leadership. He is a contributor to Lincoln Square. He is a policy advocate. He is just an advocate in general. And I'm super excited to get to have a talk with him today. Bobby, do you mind introducing yourself for everyone in the audience?
Bobby Jones, I'm just a dude that found myself raising my hand at 18 to go do some crazy things because I said I wanted to see the world, and here we are. I just want to thank you for bringing me on, Nick, because this is one of these last bastions of sanity, so I can yell into the cave and not think I'm crazy. And want to say hello to everybody in the chat. You have one of the best chats on Substack, man. Intelligent.
Thanks.
Doing things, and I appreciate the invite.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you. And the community, I hope you all take that to heart, smash the hearts while you're at it, because he's just a dude who's kicking ass and who's cooler than the average dudes. Thanks, Truth to Power. I appreciate that. And as you all know in the chat, I will respond to you. We will add in some of your comments and feedback into the discussion. I always do. I really appreciate all of the community that we've got. Before we get into our actual interview today, Bobby is the first of two this morning. Next will be with Marlon Weems. If you're catching this live on February 12th, hey, if you're with us for the first time, we also now have a shop. Sick of This Shit is now selling merch. If you would like to get your own notes of the week, now you know, so you can grow left-handed or right-handed coffee mugs, or sweaters, whatever you want. Humble shout out or self-promotion for myself unabashedly, because and my good friend Beth Cruz, who's helping manage the shop, and is a volunteer in my community. Thank you, Beth. You're freaking amazing. Also, thanks everyone for being here. Bobby, before we get into the actual interview, I really wanted to get your thoughts on the spectacle that happened yesterday that was supposed to be a congressional hearing. I covered and listened to the whole thing. I'm assuming you listened to the whole or majority of it, because you are very in tune with what's going on. And I'd love to get your feedback on what you saw and where you saw points of positivity out of it, not just the negative, because it was a pretty fucked up morning.
Yeah. So overall, my impressions are this: that when the fathers of the democratic system, and notice, I'm not saying the founding fathers of the United States. I'm just saying, I'm talking going back to Rome. I'm talking about real intellectual discussion and debate on policy, whether you're talking Rome, whether you're talking parts of sub-Saharan Africa that did this. No matter where in human history, when these people came up with these concepts, never, ever, 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 ever in their right mind could they have imagined that the most powerful nation on the planet would be subjected to that buffoonery. And what I mean by that is, I have seen 5-year-olds hopped up on every sugar candy known to man that have more coherent arguments and discussions when they disagree than what I saw yesterday. It was a downright disgrace. And here's the thing: the unmitigated gall for Bondi to go into those proceedings with real live victims of what we are now saying is the largest probably cover up in American history.
Yeah.
She is the chief law enforcement officer. This is the part that I think people forget about her because she panders so much on the political side. She is the number one cop in the United States of America. Okay. And for her to act that way because she does not want to answer very legitimate, very real, very relevant, and here's the thing, very bipartisan questions about the
Yeah.
protection and safety of our most vulnerable population is insanity. Like, if I was in Congress today, I would be drawing up articles of impeachment because there have been blatant violations of laws that Congress bilaterally passed.
Hmm.
Then it's the arrogance of which they're defying the order.
Yes.
That's what's killing me.
Yeah.
And if I'm old enough to remember, if any other administration in American history rolled someone out like that, that person would be removed. The power and the sanity of the commander in chief would be questioned. And most importantly, you would also hear voices from all over the country from states attorneys general because they're looking at the person that's supposed to be in charge and asking themselves, what the heck? We've had mass resignations in the
Yeah.
Department of Justice across the board to where they are no longer functional. The story about the young lady who was like, please just throw me in contempt so I can get in jail and get some sleep. You
Yeah.
know, this is, again, I'm going to remind you guys, the most powerful nation in the world. And this is what it's become. It's not a kangaroo court because a kangaroo court at least has a purpose and you can see calories being burned on doing something.
Yeah.
Here, we got nothing. We got nothing. Let me ask this. I'll ask you this question, Nick. Do
Yeah.
you honestly believe if there was some type of serious criminal conspiracy discovered, would you trust this Department of Justice to prosecute it?
No, I would not.
And there it is. So what are we doing?
And
you
and
know?
that discussion actually happened yesterday multiple times.
Hmm.
And I'm one of
It
the
did
points that I want to bring up was the most important points is that Pam Bondi refused to turn around and look at the
the
survivors
whole time.
right behind her. Refused. And she was performing to an audience of one. And I definitely think there's a reason that they have women in these positions.
Hmm.
And it's to eventually remove them and say, oh, but it was just these uppity women or
Right,
these
right,
women who are doing bad things and they're so emotional and look how emotional she got and this is why men need to be there. And
right,
that's one of the things we're trying to correct
right,
right now.
right.
And
And
yeah, go
it's
ahead.
funny. It's funny, Nick, you mentioned that because I've thought about this before yesterday, but I thought about why is it that we have Pam Bondi in this position? And it's two things. If you know anything about her background, she is desperate for recognition.
Yeah.
Desperate. She was originally that party girl, right? That did desperate things to get people's attention. This is not me saying, this is the people that knew her in Florida, right? And then how when she was confronted with Epstein for the first time, how she was just basically bought off for $25,000. Okay.
Yeah.
She wants to stay in the limelight. Did you see how many times? It's kind of funny. No matter what you try to do, your body can betray you. The nervous tick of her messing with her hair the whole time.
Yeah.
And it almost was like it preceded the lie that she was about to tell. It literally was a tick because she
Yeah.
knows what she's doing. And you hit it on the head. The fact that you're supposed to be the chief prosecutor to protect people and you can't even look at victims that are confirmed in the reports that you have released says that you are complicit in their protection. It's that simple. It's that simple. That
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah. And the fact that we're releasing files that are completely unredacted for the survivors and victims
Hmm.
is purposeful. Like it was put into congressional record that it was purposeful, that it was meant to intimidate, and it is not going to succeed because we are not going to let these women,
Hmm.
these girls, these boys, whoever they may be, these survivors, we're not going to let them ruin these people's lives anymore.
Right. Right. And here's the thing that gets me about the snowflake culture that we're seeing. at the top of the government. And I'm
Thank
going
you
to be
for
very
naming it
the
snowflake culture.
snowflake culture. They are a blizzard. I mean, they
They're white as
literally,
hell, aren't they?
whoo, they're they're white, chaotic, and melt under pressure. Blizzard typical. That's what they are. It's a snowflake culture. What really bothers me about it is how proactive they are in pursuing damages when they think that they're done. You know, just like, hey, I'm going to sue for $10 billion. Insanity.
Yes.
Insanity. You know, all of these things, all of these lawsuits, all of the man hours used to pursue what they call justice for themselves.
Mhm.
But we are now sitting on the largest pedophile ring in American history, probably world's history, that's documented, right? When you
Yeah.
take into account. And the
Outside of, say, American slavery, because
right, right,
American
right, right,
slavery
right, right, right.
was a
Yes,
pedophile ring
yes,
in
yes.
any other
It
name.
was a lot of stuff. But as far as targeted area, targeted population, exploitation, systemic setup, and the international participation, this is unlike anything we've seen in modern times, right?
Yeah.
And so the question that you got to ask yourself is, where are they spending the majority of their man hours? They have been documented having FBI agents going through files to redact instead of investigating. You know, the one thing that I liked yesterday when I saw that, you know, Massey doesn't give a damn anymore.
No, he ain't
He
playing.
really doesn't. You know, and Trump can try to primary him, but you know what though? If you go and look at his district, he's doing exactly what they want.
Yes. And
He's
he's
doing exactly
representing.
what they want.
He's
Exactly.
representing.
And here's the thing: it was his questioning that really
Mhm.
stuck out to me because he got flat out angry. He's like, "What are you
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about?" And if you are a parent, and almost everybody on that committee is a parent, how can you sit there and let this woman do what she is doing? She sits there, plays with her hair, looks at her notebook, and then looks for the pre-made insult to throw at that congressional staff member. You know, but
Or their
again,
state specifically.
oh yes, oh yes. I mean, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, and yet
Mhm.
she has not interviewed the people sitting behind her looking.
Yeah.
The one where was it where they talked about the driver that drove Trump and had to almost pulled over and started beating Trump's ass because he was so pissed
Oh,
off at what he was hearing. That was
Rep.
Yeah,
Ted
Ted
Lieu,
Lieu. Yeah.
who talked about the alleged murder that
Yes.
Donald Trump was
Yes.
part of, like rape,
Yes.
abuse, and then murder of a child was
Yes.
like that in congressional record that our president, our current sitting president, is alleged to have been a
Mhm.
participant in murder.
And no one has even had an interview. An interview.
Yeah.
Do you
None
see
of
what I'm
these
saying?
women,
I,
none
I
of these
just
girls. So, what did you think of the because I want your opinion on her both as a Senate candidate and
mhm,
as a current representative, is
mhm,
Jasmine Crockett of Texas.
mhm.
I think what she did was the baseline standard of what Democrats should be doing.
I
Is the
agree.
energy that she gave, the power that she gave is what every other Democrat should be matching as the minimum, as like the base standard, and then you should judge people from there. Are they meeting that bar? It's a
Right.
loaded question towards you.
No,
What do you
no.
think of her in this moment and in this interview and what she did rather than asking questions? Is she just spoke and she asked Becca Balint, Representative Balint
Mhm,
of Vermont,
mhm,
who had an incredible interview or incredible set of questions towards Pam
mhm,
Bondi. On the Democratic side, it was primarily the women who did
mhm,
in such a powerful job. There were some
mhm,
incredible men out there too. I am not downplaying anyone who did an incredible job. There were some
mhm.
really big letdowns on the Democratic side. Rep. Eric Swalwell talking about yourself. I understand the threats against you are severe and dangerous, but in that moment, it was not the right set of
Right.
questions you should have been asking.
Well,
You could have pulled her aside. But what are your thoughts on Rep.
I got many
Crockett?
on this. Let me go backward. Let me talk about Slawwell first, who I think is a good
Yeah.
guy in this, that, and the other. But let me be very clear: of the 535 positions that are in the United States Congress, if you did not want the smoke, don't court the fire. You ran for that office.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Understand, y'all chose, you raised millions of dollars to run for that privileged seat to represent thousands of Americans. Okay? Tons of people go for it every 2 years. And now, because you're in the seat and you realize that it's hard or it's potentially dangerous, to quote Sean Connery in The Untouchables, that's the job. That's the job. Okay? If you don't want it, resign. Hell, 20 of them are resigning now. I have
They should,
zero
more
sympathy.
should.
I agree. There should be term limits on these guys to start off with, but that's a whole nother conversation. So spare me your fake your fake courage overcoming. Except I don't care.
Yeah.
And Swallow's a vet; he knows better, right? Okay, so let's start there. Jasmine Crockett. That is baseline, like you said, energy that the Democratic Party should have. And I think even within the Democratic Party, she scares them, which is why you've heard the backhanded comments or the behind the scenes, but no one wants to put their name on it. You know, she's too this, she's too that. And it's amazing to me, especially when we talk about Black women in politics, how these clowns keep saying they're too this, they're too that, they're too this. You know what they are? They're 100% goddamn real, and they don't care. That's it. You're talking about a demographic that has been abused more than any other demographic in American history, the Black woman. You want to know why there's so many different shades of Black people walking around here and still classified as Black? Because they were raped for generations and still had to take care of their kids, the master's kids, all this other kind of stuff. Hold it together. I don't want to hear it anymore, period, about this. Jasmine Crockett is doing what her job says it's supposed to do. You got 17 jobs in Congress. 17, according to the United States Constitution. And she actually tries to do all of them. Now, the oversight piece is the number one thing Congress is supposed to do outside of budget and declaring war. That's it. To oversee the commander in chief. And they
keep him in check or her in check so that they don't become a dictator. Because we were afraid of monarchs when we founded our system.
Exactly the point. The whole system was to stop a monarchical rule on these things called the United States of America. Was everything perfect? No. But the founding fathers, if you go and look at some of the stuff they wrote, especially in the Federalist Papers and their correspondence to one another, they said, look, we are not at the point where we can execute this thing properly. We're hoping that future generations will be able to. And we have done the 180 on this. Okay. The fact that I'm in Georgia, where apparently it's come out that they filmed the TP USA halftime show right around the corner from my house down here, and talking about how they have to make stuff up to seem relevant because they realize it's not about the actual people, it's about the perception. That perception matters most in governance for the most powerful nation in the world. Mind-boggling that we are at this point. Again, just less than 10 years ago, we were talking about Barack Obama wearing a tan suit and how people literally had to find fainting couches to lie on. And we're now sitting here talking about actual girls being raped systemically, and the people who did it are being protected more than the victims. And it just so happens that the number one perpetrator allegedly is the guy sitting at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and we're cool with this. Forget anything else, we're cool with that. You know, I don't understand it. I don't understand. Someone explain to me. You can do it in chat if you're someone who agrees with Trump and all that. Please break it down for me like I'm a 5-year-old, how this is acceptable behavior for anybody, let alone the alleged leader of the free world. And going to the title, Intelligent Masculinity, what blows my mind is every time he gets caught doing something misogynist, they try to make it say locker room talk or this, that, and the other, or some other antiquated 1950s Back to the Future type reference on how to view women. Okay, I played college football. All right, I've been in many locker rooms. Never heard some of the crap that has come out of these people's mouths that they have tried to justify. That ain't being masculine. That's
no, you would have gotten your ass beat in the
monster.
locker for saying that shit.
Yeah, that's my point. just like,
Yeah, like locker room talk, you would have gotten your ass beat if you came out and said, "Oh yeah, I'm a big man and I like to rape girls." No, you would have gotten your fucking ass kicked, and you still will in so many circles. And this is a perfect pivot point into our actual interview questions
hmm
before I get too lost in this conversation, because we could go down this rabbit hole forever, and it ties so much into, like you said, the intelligent masculinity and
hmm
why it's so important that we're doing this, and why I started this at the beginning of the year is because men are the problem right
hmm
now. Men
hmm
need to fix themselves. Men
hmm
need to challenge other men to be better.
hmm
Women don't, trans people don't, gay people don't, lesbians don't. Yes, you do in your own circles, but at this moment in time in history, the ones who are causing the real issues are straight men who look mostly like me
hmm
over anybody else. And to
hmm
combat that, I am purposefully putting out this series on intelligent masculinity where we get to talk with men who are intelligently masculine, who are role models, who are
hmm
examples that others should be following. And Bobby's one of those. Bobby is someone who have admired through this limited time that I've been out here, but you have put out some incredible, just pro personhood content and pro humaning content. And that's really what this is a better humaning series, but aimed at men. And
mm
so I want to get into the actual questions for you for today
hmm
so that we stay on time. Um, the first four major questions are more serious ones. And then we get into a little bit less serious with our more whimsical side based on Mulan's I'll Make a Man Out of You. I was
hmm
a choir kid when I was in high school and
Yeah.
college, and we sang in the men's choir. I'll Make a Man Out of You. It was clarion call to action for men. It was the Let's Go Girls for us, and it pumped us up. And I've made some questions that I found get you thinking a little bit around
hmm
it. And Bobby, you're joining an incredible cast of folks who I've interviewed, from Chris Goldsmith and Evan Fields to my friends Lawrence Winterman and Sherrod Swaney. Sherrod's 19 and the founder of Centered America, and he's had a journey that's incredible. And so we've had from 19 to in our 60s. And so
mm
before we get in, if you're okay with it, roughly how old are you, or how old are you? So we can get a
I'm
range in this series for you.
47. 47.
47.
I
Nice.
had to think
Looking
about
good
that.
for 47, brother.
All my pain's gonna be
With all the
inside.
stress
Trust me.
that's going around in the world, you're looking good. Um, you hold yourself well, and it shows, because one of the things I've talked about is that positive masculinity and positivity and intelligent masculinity reflects outward on
Mm,
who we are and what we look like as a person compared to others. Because, say, Stephen Miller, who's roughly our ages, between our ages, I'm 36, you're 47.
mm,
So anywhere
mhm,
in that 10-year gap, I think he's somewhere in there,
mhm.
is he looks like he's gross, like a gross human being
Yeah.
compared to you or
He look
compared to me.
he looks like a treasure trove that was brought to life on a bad wish from a drunk child.
Um, I I'm gonna this one will gross you out, but I love this one. Is I call him smegma. He's that yeasty substance you find on an unclean,
Yeah.
uncircumcised penis. It's a
Yeah.
yeast infection of a
Yeah.
person. And if
Yeah.
he had a tonsure for hair, he would look like a penis just walking around. Like, he's a gross
Yeah.
human being.
He's something
Uh,
else.
but but before we go too far into that, because we could also go down that rabbit hole, is let's get into some questions for you.
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
and so the first one is a two-parter, and they're both really important because both ends of this spectrum of masculinity or humaning are super important to us, and they
Mhm.
influence so much in our lives. So my first question is, who has been the most influential masculine figure in your life, and why?
Oh, that's simple. My dad. So my dad, who unfortunately passed away about no, let's see, almost 2 years ago now, going a year and a half, something like that. His 75th birthday actually was this week. And so my dad grew up very, very dirt poor in northern Florida, with six other siblings, um, basically a single mom, and had to literally, they would have to go out and like find food. like at night. Like we're talking Jim Crow, Southern poverty, in a rural area of North Florida, where if you drive through there, sometimes you may still think that, that the Civil War is going on, depending on where you go, right? And so he was able. All of his brothers were able to escape that because they joined the military. He was athletic enough where he got to go to college playing football, and because he was very, very talented, he actually wound up going to the NFL and played for 5 years in the NFL. What's interesting about that is he grew up, relatively stone's throw away from University of Florida, but due to his skin color, they would not bring him on. He would not go and be a scholarship athlete there, so he had to go to an HBCU up in Virginia, Virginia Union. Um, the one thing about my dad was he never looked to make excuses, and he was one of the hardest working people I ever seen in my entire life. He willingly shifted to night shifts when we were growing up because he played football back when there was no superstar contracts. It was just everybody had part-time jobs, second-time jobs. But he switched to working nights so he would be available to see us on weekends play sports. And I know that that was exhausting, right? Because he still wanted to be someone to participate. But at the same time, he still coached us in our youth sports. He was a mentor to a lot of buddies of mine that I went to high school with. Um, but he just did the work, and he never really sought any accolades for it. And I see that growing up, and then I choose to go to Annapolis for football, to play football instead of going to some of these other places because of him. He's like, life is more than football. And this is coming from a guy that played in the NFL. I mean, he played in the same division with the Steelers of the 70s. That's insane when you look at it. But he made it a point to let me and my brother and my sister know that there was more to a lot of things. And again, never would brag about it. He just do his job. He would do what he thought was his job. He jumped down our throats if we weren't doing what we were expected to do. But he was a guy that really was just all about the action and not the talking. Um, and I try to remember that. I'm a pretty outgoing person, but at the end of the day, I try to do stuff for people that they will never know about, and it's because it's not about you. People have asked, "Look, what is it being a man in 2026 supposed to be?" Blah 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 blah, and all this other kind of stuff. Well, in my personal opinion, based on what I have seen from not just my father, but heck, I admire my brother, how he lives and how he does business. It's not about you. The first thing about being a man is not about you. You, if you are lucky as a man, have many people around you who you may have to be responsible for, who you may contribute to, this, that, and the other. And you do that to the best of your ability. The legacy of a man is not how much he obtains, but who he affects and how, right? And then the other piece of this too is I learned from my father is if you do it right, your accomplishments will speak for themselves. You never have to say a word. And that is so opposite of what is being projected as masculinity now. When you see the Andrew Tates and all these other people of the world, they always brag about what they've done. Well, when I think about some of the more masculine men that did real hard stuff, Medal of Honor winners, pro athletes that were the greatest. Like I tell people all the time, Barry Sanders is the greatest running back of all time. And you ask Barry Sanders what he thinks of himself, he's like, I was okay. Never brag, never spike, never, but spectacular. You see it and you know it. But that's what a lot of men were a generation ago. You got that World War II generation that came home from post World War II and, you know, went through a depression, saw hell on earth, never really talked about it, just focused on, hey, I need to get a job, I need to get educated. Somewhere along the line, we took that aspect out of what masculinity is and replace it with this over the top boisterousness. But at the same time, the guys don't have the accomplishments that these other generations have. So, yeah, I would definitely say it's my dad. And then the other piece are coaches that I had, and junior, high school and college that gave you a different perspective of how to look at things and to continuously challenge yourself. That is the one thing every male role model in my life, whether it was my dad, whether it was coaches, whether it was, captains and admirals in the Navy. It was the consistent thing of challenge yourself to get better. Do not rest on your laurels. Do not pat yourself on the back when you can be better at something else. And I think that's the biggest thing that's hit me, now that I've been able to look back on these things.
I I love that. I love the idea of service-based leadership is
Hmm.
one of the things that I pull out of that is like a broad topic or a broad name of what
Hmm.
you have seemed to have instilled or internalized from your father, from other figures in your life, from your coaches, is that service-based leadership where you leadership isn't about you. Leadership
Hmm.
and success isn't about you solely. You don't buy into this rugged individualism concept that is so prevalent in what I it's to me it's old masculinity or fragile. It's a
Hmm.
mask of masculinity. It's not even really manhood what they're doing because one of the things you too that you said that stuck out to me was that they talk only about the things that they have done, but
Right.
never the things they are doing.
Hmm.
And there's a
It's
big
true.
distinction between those who I see who are actively promoting and, as Chris Goldsmith would say, is on offense for masculinity, aren't bragging about it. Like,
Right.
okay, I see myself as an intelligent masculine male. I see that as a good thing. I don't brag about it because that's the bare minimum I should be.
Hmm.
In my mind of what men should be is intelligently masculine. Like I'm married for 11 years because of it, or just
Right.
about 11 years because of it, because I have learned over time. And those figures of service have been so important around that. So
Mm.
thank you for highlighting that. I think that's really important in what you said. So, shifting over to the other end of that spectrum in terms
Mhm.
of where you have learned and what you have gained as knowledge throughout is I have found that the feminine side of what we consider emotions or just whatever we ascribe to femininity in a Western society, like
Mhm.
we ascribe anything that is about emotions or about it, like honesty and self-worth and value
Mhm.
as feminine.
Mhm.
I don't know why.
Mhm.
They're equally gendered. Like
Mhm.
everybody can have both. Like you can be strong and intelligent and emotional and controlled. Like you can have all of it. But to me, it's important to see the feminine side and specifically call it out and
Mhm.
shout out
Mhm.
the importance of it. So building on the masculine figures in your life, who has or who have been the most influential feminine figures in your life?
Well, it's funny because, traditionally, I can easily say, my mother, as a woman, and my wife as a woman, but at the same time, those two in particular have this thing, and that to quantify it, it's more around the strength aspect. Here's the thing: the emotional piece. What you're talking about, men and women, and the roles that emotions play. I have been lucky enough to be around people where the emotion is fuel to fire. And I mean, it creates a resolve. So when I think about the women in my life, my mother who gave me life, my wife, my two daughters, my sister, all of them have this reoccurring thread of strength, right? And what's interesting, going back to what you said earlier about Jasmine Crockett, they're like, oh, she's too emotional, blah, 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 this, that, and the other. But yet, here's the thing that you want to classify as being in touch with emotion is literally what's powering her to say and do things everybody else lacks the courage to say. And to me, if you are a man and you are trying to be a leader, say a head of a household, head of a company, blah, blah, and you cannot relate to other people's emotions, starting with your own, then you're going to be way less effective. Why? Because all we can do is prepare ourselves on how to live life. We cannot sit there and predict what life is going to do. And if you don't know how you emote, right? How you react to certain things, then how can you be the most effective man you can be if you shut off that entire section of your personality. And this is coming from a guy that, my last appointment, my wife was like, "You're getting out the Navy," because I was so emotionally spent and drained. And then, to be honest, cutting myself off from a portion of my emotional spectrum to just finish the job. And to this day, you wonder, did you do it the most effective way because you were not at peace with how you process things via your emotions? So my thing is, if you don't know how to deal with your emotions, and more importantly, other people's emotions who rely on you, you're operating in a handicapped capacity, because human beings are not designed to be that way. If you don't think, I'll give you a perfect example. If you don't think Abraham Lincoln did not cry writing a letter to a mother her only son had been killed, you're crazy. Okay. If you don't think that Dwight D. Eisenhower did not have the most high level of anxiety on June 5th, 1944, you're insane. They all did. And they had to learn how to deal with it to become more effective leaders and just men in general.
Yeah. Yeah. You touch on a huge piece there, is the effectiveness of emotional regulation,
Mm-hmm.
um, and using that emotion to fuel and power forward movement rather than self pity, and like incel culture, to be specific.
Mm-hmm.
If we're going to
Mm-hmm.
give a name to it, is what we have allowed a lot of white men to just fall into, because we did. We
Mm-hmm.
did. We allowed it to happen. White men specifically allowed ourselves to be bought into the narrative that
Mm-hmm.
domination is strength, and
Yes.
that violence is power rather than knowledge and emotional regulation and support. And so I think,
That, Nick, that's the ironic thing to me, right?
yeah,
That population. Let's focus on them just for real quick. The way they have acted out, but at the same time, they launched their rage at women who,
yes,
ironically, have to regulate their emotions more than anybody else in order to just make it through the day. When you think about it, right?
yep,
When you when you sit there and you hear of one of these dudes online losing their minds, blah blah blah, and they live in a system that has given them every advantage, and because their expectations have not been met, they want to be angry. Those who are not part of that group look at them like, what? Women, minorities, this, that, and the other. And this gets to the most important piece, I think, about being a man, and that is the resiliency. Whether you're talking physical resiliency, emotional resiliency, all of these pieces that say, hey, you got knocked down, you need to get up. And you got to get up because you're supposed to be a protector. You're supposed to be someone that's reliable. But if the first breeze that blows by you knocks you down and you stay down, then I don't give a dang what you post online. I don't give a dang what picture you show or what workout you post on. You're not a man to me. Period.
true. So, what asking the next question in our interview here, in our interview set itself here, is, if you were to put a definition to it, what does intelligent masculinity mean to you?
Wow. I would say having the mental fortitude to push forward no matter how difficult things are, understanding that you're pushing forward not because it's about you, but because there are other people who rely on you. That's number one. Number two, being in touch well enough with your emotions to know what your shortcomings are, but then having the courage to keep working on it. And then number three, to be a true partner to your significant other. If you want to talk traditional with a woman, this, that, and the other, one of the things that has bothered me is watching people try to tear down women, tear down people who identify LGBTQ, because they are mediocre, and that group has worked so hard to excel. So instead of stepping your game up to be a partner, to be their equal, you would rather tear them down and see no one be successful. That bothers me. A real man, think about it like this. Back in the day when you had to court a woman using these traditional labels, a man had to show himself worth. I have to have the right job. I have to be able to do this. I have to show the father of of the woman that I want to marry that I am able to do. You had to step your game up to go pursue her, right? Using those traditional norms.
Hmm.
Now it's like, oh, that woman makes this. Well, she thinks she's that. You talk about them first and try to tear them down to your level because you're too lazy to get off your ass and be better. When you look at women going to college more than men, when you see women who have been denied this, that, and the other for generations, attacking these things, and this is coming from the father of two daughters, one in college, one in high school. I'm telling you now, step your game up. That's the final piece of intelligent masculinity. You're always continuously trying to get better. That's just my opinion. My
I
opinion.
think
But
that's great. It fits in with the definition. So over the course of all of this, I've come to my own like boiled down thesis of what intelligent masculinity is, and you hit really all of the points of it. You say it in more words and more eloquently than I did. Um, and I think it's really awesome to one of the lessons that I've picked out of all of this is girl dads are awesome. Um,
mm,
and those of us who also are blessed to have both girl and boy,
mhm,
we get lucky because we get to add into our sons' lives the importance of femininity
mhm,
without having to try. Like
mhm,
without needing to try, you get to put in that importance because you live with it daily. And you, if you're going to be a good husband, a good father, a good partner, a good any of that, you embody the things that you want to see done unto
mm,
others. And so
simple.
to me, intelligent masculinity is the refusal to outsource accountability onto others and the discipline
Mm,
to live with the consequences of your values and actions. Be they
mm,
be good consequences or bad consequences, you're disciplined enough to live with them. And you explained all of that and encapsulated that in how you view your life and the things around you. So, building on what you've already discussed with me about this, is how do you intentionally model those behaviors in your own life?
um, it's it, it's not as hard as you would think, but it's not as easy as it should be. I guess that's the best way I would describe it. So, for example, um, the environment that I was raised in, my parents would always stress to us, the kids, never really be satisfied with what you're doing. You know, Jimmy Johnson, when he coached the Dallas Cowboys when they were good, you know, a generation ago, he said something to the effect of, you're either getting better or you're getting worse. There is no in between. So when you come out here to practice every day, did you get better? Did you get worse? There's no in between. And I never forgot that because as a young man, you kind of in the back of your mind, just like, dang, I really just wasted a day because I got worse today, this, that, and the other. So that's the first thing. Am I getting better as a person, as a man, as a husband, as a father, all of those things? Or did I get worse? The other piece that really has driven my mindset, and it's a lot more after I got out of the Navy, is defining the dash. Um, so what I mean by that is when you die, they have your obituary, they have the year that you were born, the year you died, and then the dash in between it. And I didn't come up with this concept, but I think it's the most glaring thing on my mind. How did you define the dash, right? When it's all said and done and you check out of here and people come to talk about you, what does that legacy look like? Because I can tell you this, there have been plenty of people who have been on this planet that have had a ton of money, died, and within a couple of years, no one talks about them. And then you've had some of the most broke, most poverty ridden, most uneducated people literally change society, and we still speak of them hundreds of years later, right? As a man, in a system that, to be completely blunt and honest, is a patriarchy based system, your impact can be enormous, whether we're talking local in your little neighborhood, on your, your little league teams that play, or globally and historical, like President of the United States, this, that, and the other. No matter what the scale is, your mindset matters. And so I consistently think to myself nowadays, it's like, if I checked out of here today, God forbid, a tree fell on me or whatever, did I maximize the time that I had to help other people? Because at the end of the day, you can slap your name on a building. The building's going to fall one day. Dr. King died at age 39, and they will talk about him for hundreds of years, right? Donald Trump is 79. And something tells me within one generation, the only thing people are going to remember about him is how corrupt he was. Do you see what I'm saying? And so when you
Yeah.
really think about this, and men in general, how you interact with one another, how you interact with women, did you help? Were you a true partner in the relationship you had? Were you a true partner in the people you work with? Were you someone who was reliable? Because here's the thing, when shit hits the fan, everybody knows who they're going to go to for help, who's reliable. And if you are not on someone's Rolodex to be that person as a man, in my humble opinion, you're failing. You're failing because it's not about you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're getting so much love in the comments too on this, is the
I can't
idea
even see
of
him.
defining yourself between the dash, and defining your own legacy and how you leave an impact that is meaningful. And to me, that's always been how I've sort of viewed it, because and this goes on to maybe the religious side, is I'm agnostic atheist.
Hmm.
Like, I don't believe that I'll go anywhere after this
Hmm.
life, and that's okay, because I'm going
Hmm.
to use my life to the fullest, because I don't live once. I live every day. I only die once, but I
Right.
live every day, and I have to make the most out of that living to leave a positive impact, or a impact of some sort that can live on. And I hope people talk about me in the future in a positive way, whoever they may be.
Hmm.
If it's a small impact or a large impact, as long as I leave a positive one that's lasting to my children, that's the most important, or to my spouse, or to
Hmm.
my brothers and my sister-in-laws, my nieces and nephews, like anyone near me. If I leave an impact on them, that's good. And it
Hmm.
sounds like, Bobby, you've been able to do that even without having to say that you've left an impact on your daughters or on your wife or on those around you. Is just your presence is leaving a positive impact, and I think that's incredible. And so I want to ask you this. Thank you, love. As my wife comes in and brings me a
Ah,
giant
Fanta.
Fanta.
Whew.
I
That's a good
love
woman.
me
I don't know
Fanta.
anything about her, but she brought you a Fanta, so she's a good woman.
Shot, my love, Bobby Jones says you're amazing.
Yep.
Um, so I want to get into the next question here too, is because you've talked a lot about it and around it, is self-reflection and self-evaluation, and how you use those tools to ensure that you look back on yourself and evaluate what you've done, and how you've impacted people. And so, are there any specific things that you do for self-reflection or self-evaluation that you would want to pass on to others to be able to integrate into their lives?
Yeah, there are a couple of major things that I do, and a lot of it is in my daily routine. But for example, I still, as technologically advanced as society is, I still use my old school. Here it is, little notepad to write my stuff down, to keep track. And it's not a to do list mentality. Let me tell you why I do it. For me, it's something about writing down something tangibly where it kind of not only sticks in my mind, right? But that second that it takes for me to come up with what I want to do and then phrase how I want to do it adds another layer of thinking through the process. And the reason that's important for me is very simply because People love to dream in technicolor, but in my mind, you have to execute in high definition. By doing that, for me, it's easy for me. It's easier for me to track my progress. Going back to what I said about getting better or getting worse, right? Well, I am my harshest critic. I have to be, right? And the thing about self critiquing is if you are not harsh, then eventually you'll start to let yourself slide. Um, I'll give you a perfect example that I think is more tangible from people. The National Football League. We just had the Super Bowl, right? Seattle Seahawks won. Um, the amount of talent difference between the Seahawks and the Las Vegas Raiders, who are drafting first, is very, very, very minuscule. Very minuscule. When you get to that level of eliteness, but what you're finding, what they have done studies on this, especially because they have a salary cap, is those little things that the average person would overlook is what makes a difference between you being a champion and being dead last. It's interesting, especially men, young boys, they get that concept in sports because it's something that they see tangibly, but it's very hard for us to translate that mentality to the rest of our lives, especially in interpersonal relationships. You know, instead, we'll either ignore it, we'll make fun of it, this, that, and other. And I have, and let me be very crystal clear. I have done all of this in the past. You know what I'm saying? I am the
Yeah.
ultimate work in progress. My wife will tell you that unabashedly, right? But here's the thing: there's a reason the term growing pains exist. You cannot grow unless you get into discomfort. You cannot become better unless you break whatever shackles you have on you to move past your own self limitations. The one thing that I will tell you, the combination of being in the Navy for almost 30 years and then playing, sports, football at a relatively high level and stuff like that, the intersection of those things have been something I've never, ever, ever will forget because it informs me of how to move forward. You want to do hard things, expect to go through hard times, right? You want you want to create something that lasts where your children and your grandchildren and your great grandchildren can look back with pride about how you conducted yourself. Then be prepared to do some things that are going to be hard, that has a generational impact. For some reason, the term or the definition or how modern society looks at manhood vice what it actually is going to take to meet the requirements you project, there's this disconnect. And what bothers me the most is, instead of viewing other people, whether you're talking about women, whether you're talking about spouse, as people who are in true partnership to help you along this journey, and in many ways sherpa you through this journey, we look at them as accessories that can be casted off when you think someone is going to steal shine, this, that, and the other. It's asinine to me, because I can't think of anything that one man, I don't care what emperor it was in the ancient time, blah, blah, was able to accomplish by themselves. By
Truth.
themselves. Can't
Truth.
do it. If this was the case, then all these apex predator men would be living by themselves in caves and jungles, coming down just to hunt and procreate and go back into caves. No. We live in nice air-conditioned heated units in nice manicured lawn societies because we collaborated and got better. And so I just I believe that my personal self-improvement comes from being overly harsh, and then the love of my life, the wife pulls me out and be like, you're okay. This is not bad. Let's take an account of how far you've come. And then you go back to the grind, and this is where I think that incel community, that's where they miss out. They don't have anybody to pull them out of that hole. So they just go with other like-minded people, and it's the ultimate groupthink scenario gone wrong, right?
Yes.
And so and I say we as a society, not just men, we need to look out for those people and other vulnerable people, because as they become more disassociated with society and reality, the more susceptible they are to this ridiculousness. And the next thing you know, you have what happened in Canada this week happen.
Yeah.
Those are the results, because we as a society, We as men, all these other people, failed to do our due diligence helping someone else.
Yeah. So, lightning round, because we've
Mm-hmm.
got just a couple minutes left,
Yep.
and I've got another one of these right after this. When so I want to make sure I try and get into our let make a man out of you questions,
Mm-hmm.
the Mulan songs. So, lightning round. These are fun and a little bit whimsical for you. So,
Okay.
to you, what would it mean to be as swift as a coursing river?
As swift as a coursing river. Uh, for me, that would mean I move fast enough where people notice, but powerful enough to literally change a landscape.
Love it. Love it.
Because
How would
yeah, go ahead.
how would you then embody the force of a great typhoon?
Embody it.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't know. Catch me watching the Atlanta Falcons as a season ticket holder blow another game. That'd be typhoon like. I'd probably flip tables and throw stuff. So, yeah, something like that. I mean, typhoons happen to be something that's somewhat random but powerful, and it's usually a reaction of different, for example, different atmospheric conditions, hot air meeting cold air, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, me at a sporting event watching my favorite team give a game away.
I love it. You mean like when the Patriots beat the
Yep,
Falcons?
like in Super Bowl 51. Yes, yes,
Yep.
yes. Damn it, yes, Nick.
Hey, I watched that live with a Falcons fan, and I was a Pats fan at the time, and it was so fun to just remind them, hey, 25 points,
Yeah,
25
man.
points. You just blew
Yeah,
that lead, and we just walked it right over you there. Hey, Falcons, good job.
trying to
Good
make
job.
it. Trying to make it.
So, next question. How are you as strong as a raging fire?
Because I refuse to be put out no matter what someone or what society may say. Um, and it's kind of funny. I've actually had to use that analogy to get myself hyped, to be honest. There were times in my younger years where I could have quit, probably should have quit, and refused to quit because I'm stubborn. And most importantly, I have a lot of petty. Petty is the top secret fuel of greatness. When someone says you can't do something, it's like a switch goes off in my mind.
Love that. Love it. And finally, this one is the hardest of them, but is also in my eyes the most fun of them. Is how are you as mysterious as the dark side of the moon?
uh, I'll tell you exactly what. because because of the career profession that I was in, and I got to travel around the world and deal with different people. Because of the permanent suntan that I have on my body, people definitely underestimated my cognitive abilities. And so I would play into it. I would go over the top to play into it. And then usually within a month of someone knowing me, they'd realize, oh my God, he's not stupid at all. He's pretty smart. And if you're lucky, you get to save it for a dramatic moment. And basically once every tour that would happen. And I had a conversation
That was
about it.
weird.
Yeah, I had a conversation about it one time with a friend of mine. It's like, have you been sandbagging all this time while I was in Colorado Springs Station? And I said, yeah. And then I asked him a question in return. I said, why do you think I was sandbagging? Well, because you didn't come off as someone that would know this, that, and the other. And I said, well, no one ever asked me, but why did you assume I didn't know such and such? The United States government paid money to send me on orders here based on my
Sorry, I think my internet's doing some weird
No, it's
stuff at the
fine.
moment.
But that was fun. I mean, now I try not to be such a jerk about it, but
But
yeah,
I love
people
that.
underestimate you, and everybody who's watching this knows what it's like to be underestimated for whatever reason. It can be color, gender, height. But y'all know what it feels like when someone looks at you and be like, "Well, they don't know what the hell you're talking about," and you just sit there and think to yourself, "Dude, there's a reason I'm in the building. There's a reason I'm
Mhm.
in the room," and then you get to prove them wrong. That's fun. That's being mysterious. Then you can really mess with them and act like you know more than you actually know, and then they'll just accept it.
I love it.
It's fun.
I love it. If But as my dad used to say, is if you can't dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with bullshit. Um, and that was a
Mhm.
good old army saying back in the day.
Mhm.
And that's a fun one. All right.
That's what I miss
So
most about the military are all the sayings
all
that,
the
oh
fun
my god.
sayings.
It's crazy. It's
Well, we
crazy.
live in the FUBAR time of America right now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, Bobby, this has been so amazing. Like,
No, thanks
this
for
has
having me,
been
man. I'm really, really
so
happy to
much
be here.
fun. Well, thank you for joining me, and I'm so glad that you did. I think the audience has really loved you. This has been the largest discussion we've had for the Intelligent Masculinity series,
Oh
and I
wow.
am
That's good.
so glad that you were able to join me for it. This is like I have learned a lot. I've had a lot of fun today, and I want you to have the chance to unabashedly promote yourself and
Yeah.
let people know where they can find you and support your work.
Yeah, no, like you mentioned earlier, I'm a contributor on Lincoln Square, which is affiliated with Lincoln Project. So you can see the QR code right there on the screen, and we have a weekly live stream called Anchor Watch, Tuesdays, and we just had Congressman Jason Crow on this week, and that man is doing serious work. He's doing a great job, and we tried our best to get subject matter experts on, so you can hear it from the horse's mouth and people who've been there and done that, not just someone pontificating thinking it sounds cool. And then once a week, if you turn on Midas Touch Network Saturday mornings on YouTube, you'll probably see a video from me that I contribute weekly there. But I appreciate the support. And Nick, you can ask me anytime to come on. I'll come on, man, because I love coming on your shows.
I appreciate that a lot. I really do. This has been amazing. Again, thank you, Bobby. Thank you, everyone in the audience, for if you're on Substack, smash the heart one last time and hit the Chiron in the top of your screen. Subscribe to both Bobby and myself. This is cross platforming on both my Stick of the Ship Publications Network and Banner and Backbone Media. So if you're on either one, thank you for being here with us. Thank you for joining this community. And if you're catching this live, tune in here right after this. I'm going to be hopping on with Marlon Weems for another incredible discussion into intelligent masculinity. Bobby, thank you so much. Everybody
Thank you.
else, thank you all.
Thanks,
And
everyone.
have a great day.
Mhm.